Since 2010, Everlane has been selling the irresistible promise of eco-friendly, climate-friendly fashion that you can feel good about buying. Now that promise belongs to Shein. Yes, Shein, the most notorious name in Chinese ultra-fast fashion, the literal most polluting cheap clothing brand on Earth. On Sunday, May 17th, Puck News broke the story that Shein is buying Everlane, one of the most famous ethical fashion brands of the millennial era. So far, the internet has been treating Shein's acquisition of Everlane like a corporate sellout story. And don't get me wrong, it totally is. But I think the real story is much bigger than that. Because what Shein is really buying here is not just Everlane's clothes or its supply chain or its customer list. It's buying Everlane's credibility, its marketing, and its story. Namely, the story that we can shop our way out of environmental and climate crises. So today, Heated producer Tracy Wholf and I are going to talk about what Everlane actually promised, why that promise was always way more complicated than it looked, what Shein is really buying with Everlane, and what this deal reveals about the limits of sustainable fashion. This conversation is inspired by my article titled Everlane Was Never Eco-Friendly on Substack. If you would like to read it and support our work, head over there to check it out.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, Tracy.
I have a confession to make.
Okay, go for it.
I had not heard of Everlane until I read your post.
You hadn't even heard of it?
That is how under a rock I am. And the reason I'm really embarrassed to admit this is because as a reporter in the climate space who gets pitched by a lot of people, I had never been pitched by Everlane. It's like, hey, it's Earth Day. Do a sustainability fashion story on it. Never, ever.
Part of that might be that so many brands pitch themselves to us as being sustainable fashion. And it's always like bullshit, right? And it's just like, I feel like so much of it goes over our head. But the other reason is that, and I don't mean to call you out here, but I don't think you're a millennial.
Technically, I'm born in 81, so like I'm like a super old, like curmudgeonly millennial.
Oh, okay. I'm a crusty millennial.
Yeah, I'm a crusty millennial. But I think I would also argue it speaks to like that era of exclusivity that I was too mainstream for the brand.
I got it. Well, I knew Everlane.
Okay.
I will admit that I didn't know so much about its really aggressive climate and environmental ethos. I knew Everlane because Everlane was all over the internet and Everlane advertised jeans. They were always really big on jeans and I always wanted jeans. Now, I will tell you, I don't know about you, I'm assuming you don't own any Everlane.
I own 0 Everlane. And after this episode, I will continue to own 0 Everlane.
Unless I find something at a thrift store and it fits perfectly, maybe. But the reason I never owned Everlane was not because I didn't try to. I had like gone to Everlane brick and mortar stores, but they just didn't fit my body type. Like whoever Everlane made jeans for, it was not people with as big butts as mine. So
wait, I just want to interject here. This whole era of, the B2B, we do everything on the internet. We don't have brick and mortar stores. I personally am terrified to buy clothes that way.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like I have to try it on and I can't be bothered with you shipping it to me trying it on, me
and then sending it back.
And then sending it back. It's too much of a pain in the ass. So if I can't physically try it on, I'm just very hesitant to buy things.
Well,
period.
I think Everlane knew that. So Everlane, just to give you a little bit of history, it was founded in 2010. I think it opened in 2011, and it was originally exclusively direct to consumer, online, shipped to you. If you don't like it, ship it back. And it had this sort of hyper exclusive thing about it. It was like, if you want to get on it, you have to do wait lists for things like basic t-shirts. And it didn't open those brick and mortar stores until like 2017, 2018. I think for the reason that you're talking about. They wanted to have that ethos that was like, it's just going to be online, but they started in New York, San Francisco, and then the one that I was always trying on jeans and hating them was in DC. So, and that was, late 2010s. So, and just, just to make you aware of it, their brand ethos was sort of like, we are clean, simple, well-made, climate conscious, environmental conscious, and the style was truly like basics. Well, and I guess I
Right.
should say it still is basics because at this moment it still exists. We don't know what's
Right.
happening with it. But I remember there was a profile of the founder, Michael Praisman, in the New Yorker, and he famously said, "You do not get laid in Everlane." So that's
Which is is certainly catchy. Like, that's a great headline for a magazine story and profile.
right.
But why do you think it appealed to millennials? Like, do you think it appealed because of its sustainable background? Because it doesn't sound like, and I went down the Instagram rabbit hole and I looked at the clothes and I was like, there's nothing that I'm seeing in the advertisements that's like, oh, that looks great. I want to buy it. It did not speak to me that way. So why do you think it was initially so popular?
I think Everlane represented the millennial ethos of the Obama era,
Okay.
the optimistic era that we can change how business and politics are done in this country by simply just making things a little better, by cleaning up our supply chain, by getting money out of politics, by,
Yeah.
just doing. We were so optimistic back then. RIP the 2010s. I loved them.
I
Um,
know.
but Everlane was on a mission to clean up the industry. That's what they called it. They called their movement cleaner fashion. Quote, empower people to live their best lives with the least impact on the planet.
Mhm.
I put together some of this stuff for my article on the Heated newsletter, but here are like some of the things that Everlane did that was super appealing to people
Yes.
like me. This then CEO and founder, Michael Praisman, noted in 2020 that the company waited 6 years to make its first pair of jeans because it wanted to wait for a manufacturer that could recycle 98% of the water used in production. Love that.
Now I want to break in here. Did that make you want to buy the
Yes.
jeans more? Like, were you familiar with the background of the jeans? So that made it
Jeans
desirable for
are
you.
so as an environmental reporter, I'm sure you've come across this. Jeans are one of like the most polluting and water intensive parts
Yeah.
of the fashion industry. So it's like if you're going to buy new
Mhm.
jeans, right? Trying to
Yeah.
look for sustainable jeans is or more sustainable jeans, I should say. That's a big thing. So yeah, something like that. And I was upset that they never fit me, or never fit me right. But
Sorry.
it's fine. That's normal. Everlane was also big on reducing virgin plastics to reduce
Yeah.
fossil fuel use. So Praisman committed in 2018 to removing all virgin plastics from the company's supply chain, stores, and offices by 2021. By 2022, Everlane was publicly describing its work around three goals. It was keeping Earth clean, keeping Earth cool. So that's between, sort of environmental landfill stuff, pollution stuff, and keeping Earth cool. So, like the climate impact of fashion, which some estimates put the climate change impact of fashion as up to 10% of
Mhm.
global greenhouse gas emissions. And then doing right by people. So,
Mhm.
labor practices, et
Mhm.
cetera. The company also began publishing impact reports and setting climate targets. It had public climate targets to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And by 2025, Everlane claimed to have already achieved a 42% reduction in per product emissions. And then they also claimed that by 2024, 90% of their materials met lower impact standards, such as being organic,
Mhm.
recycled, or responsibly sourced, which I should
Right.
say is like a very vague thing to say. But that's sort of just the ethos that they were going on. And last year, Everlane announced that it was going to co-invest in textile mill decarbonization projects alongside two other sustainable fashion brands, Reformation and Eileen Fisher.
I have heard of
Um,
those.
you have heard of, okay.
I am probably of the Eileen Fisher demographic at this point in my life too.
I
Um,
also like Eileen
okay.
Fisher. I'm just gonna,
Can I
I'm gonna
just
say
say,
it.
if I had known this about Everlane, I would have been a huge patron of it. I would have been a strong supporter of this had I known back in the day.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to the things that we want to see in our fashion brands, right?
So pardon my language here, but why the fuck are they selling to Shein?
What do you mean?
And also, is it Shein or Shein? I've
Sh-
like seen this. I've seen this debate. We're just going to say
sure.
Shein, and if anyone's listening would like to write in and tell us and correct us, please do. But you're right. We're just going to
I
say
didn't
Shein.
even think of that it could be it could be Shein, but now that I'm looking at it, it does probably Shein, and probably that's more like the Chinese pronunciation of it. But I don't
Probably.
know.
I
I
don't
always
know.
just call it Shein. But
I call it Shein. I know what you're talking about when you say that.
so I feel like, okay, Everlane, knowing about all that marketing, you're like, oh, that's something I would totally buy from. When you hear anything about Shein, you're like, now I'm saying Shein, you're like, I would never buy from there.
No.
Um,
No. I refuse to download the app. I refuse to like touch it. I want like nothing to do
yeah,
with it.
what is your understanding, just like not having done a bunch of research, of what Shein is? Like,
I'm I'm just aware that it is like the largest retailer in the world that is producing tens of thousands of product that is getting shipped to every country on the planet. That alone is not good for us. The fact that it is so cheap, people can buy it and then immediately trash it if they don't like it. Although I do really enjoy those posts on Instagram where someone's like, this is what it looked like on Shein and this is what it looks like in person.
yeah, yeah. You're
It
like,
looks like
uh oh.
really bad. No, I just, as a person who's very concerned about consumption habits, waste, all the things that we're throwing out and not thinking about where they go, I've never wanted to participate in their business model because I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it's really evil. Like it
Yes.
serves no one except the CEO of Shein.
I'll be vulnerable here and I'll tell you that I have purchased from Shein before.
Emily, I
I
am in
know.
shock.
Okay.
What did you
It
buy?
was, I don't even remember. Okay. So it was, it was in the depths of the pandemic,
Okay.
and I was going through what I would call, what I now call my little mentee bee. Um, I was living alone. I was very overwhelmed. I was publishing 4 newsletters a week.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but it's true. I was doing a lot of like self-soothing with
Okay.
consumerism back then, because you had nothing else to
Yeah, we were
do
all stuck at home.
than just like order things and try things on. And I didn't even really know. I didn't know what I was doing, but I ordered like, I don't know, 5 things from Shein. I was like, oh, it's so cheap. Blah, blah. Fortunately, like, improving my life and releasing some mental load and understanding that, like, I can't solve my problems by buying shit, and trying
Yeah.
to live more in accordance with what my reporting shows has all really helped. But yes, I did buy stuff. And the fact that I don't even remember what it is means that
Yeah.
it's now in a landfill,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what Shein is designed to do. So I'll give you, from my reporting, like, the Shein
Sure.
101. So Shein is like truly the final boss of fast fashion. Like, if Everlane was built on the idea of buying fewer, better things, Shein is built on the exact opposite idea. Like you said, buy constantly, buy cheaply, buy impulsively, and then come back tomorrow because we have literally 10,000 new things on the site from
I think it's like
yesterday to today.
100,000. I read some statistic that they like add as many as 100,000 new items to their site a day, which I don't know
It's
how that's possible.
actually, so I do think it's
Okay.
10,000 each day. I read that in a Yale Climate Connections
Okay.
article, but who knows? I think that article might have been a couple
Yeah,
years old.
exactly. It was a 2023 article. We've already
Right.
doubled production.
But Shein is not so much a fashion
Mhm.
brand as it is an app-powered overconsumption
Totally.
engine. It doesn't design things. It copies other fashion brands' things, makes it more
Yeah.
cheaply, and then throws it up in worse
Yep.
materials, right? So the company generates an estimated $38 billion annually, which comes out to $104 million in sales every day.
So we have to put a pin in this for a second. So Everlane is selling to Shein. Shein. How much is Shein buying Everlane for?
$100 million.
So like a day's profit.
One day in
Yeah.
sales, right? I don't know about the profit,
Right.
but yeah, one day in sales
It's
is
literally
how much.
pocket change for this company.
It's not, that's a drop in the
Yeah.
bucket. Yeah, okay, so I read this in Yale Climate
Mhm.
Connections. So it says up to 10,000 items are added to the site each day. The company reportedly offers as many as
Yes.
600,000 items for sale at any given time, with an average price tag of roughly
$10. Yes. I
$10.
read the same thing. That's shocking.
It's crazy. One market analysis found that 44% of Gen Zers in the United States buy at least one item from Shein each month.
Mm, mm,
Crazy. So Gen Z's the problem,
okay.
not us.
We'll
Not
blame them. Um, sitting here talking about Shein and this idea of like, it's so easy to buy things. I shouldn't sit here holier than thou saying, oh, I've never purchased from it because, like, why would I? Because I purchase a lot of other cheap shit from other places. Like, this is
right.
speaking to a larger problem that mass consumption, overconsumption is what drives capitalism in our economy. And this is why, like, Jeff Bezos and Amazon are also so huge. Not as huge as Shein, but, it's really easy to buy cheap shit on the internet.
It is. And, we live in a system where everything is too expensive and, and we're all judged on how we look and our social
Yeah.
capital is built on certain things. And, one thing that being an environmental journalist has taught me is that you have to be tough on systems and kind to
Mhm,
individuals within those systems,
mhm.
right? So, like, it's nice to just put out there, like, we're not talking about any of this to shame people who buy from
No.
Shein. It's more like, dang, what a
Yeah.
system we live in
Yeah.
that allows this to occur. And if you can not buy from Shein, probably maybe not.
Maybe reconsider that purchase. But to that end, like, why in the world would Shein want Everlane? Like, they don't seem to align philosophically at all. And they're so small. Like, why would Shein even care about this tiny little company?
Well, Shein has a really bad reputation.
No.
It has a really bad reputation. Everlane had a really good reputation. So, you know, Shein isn't really buying Everlane for its product lines, I think, so much as for its story and its marketing and its credibility. Shein is the biggest polluter in fast fashion. And people don't like
hmm
that because people like the
hmm
planet. They like the
hmm
environment. So this is from that Yale Climate Connections report. It says, according to Shein's sustainability report, crazy
I know.
that
I was
Shein
going
has
to
a
say, wow,
sustainability
they
report.
even like spent the time and energy to make a sustainability report.
And you have to always take these with a grain of
Yeah.
salt because the companies make these
Right.
reports themselves. So this is according to Shein's own sustainability
Right.
report, which is probably far
Correct.
underestimating its own pollution. But the company says they emitted 16.7 million total metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2023. That's more than what 4 coal power plants spew out in 1
Which
year.
seems
Um,
low.
it
Like,
seems
that
low.
statistic actually seems low for the amount of product that they are producing, selling, shipping.
Right. Well, and this is just the amount of emissions that the company puts out. Like, we won't get into this too much on the podcast, but there's like scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3
Well,
emissions.
and not only that, but I believe the way that their model works is they're contracting with wholesalers. So that's not even like the actual cost of producing the product. This is just Shein's portion of the production line, right? Yeah.
Correct. And it's not just carbon emissions either, although that's a big factor. That's just like the sheer amount of textile
Yeah.
waste that this company produces, the high levels of microplastic pollution. Most, if not all of these garments are made out of virgin plastics, which is just fossil
hmm
fuels. And then there's also the exploitative labor
Yeah, I was gonna
practices.
say, like, I'm sure they're not paying a living wage to an adult human to do this.
No, there was an investigation that found that factory workers at Shein suppliers regularly work 75-hour
Ugh,
weeks over a year after the company pledged to improve working
wow,
conditions within its supply
that's
chain.
crazy.
And again, this is all like, I mean, that wasn't self-reported, but I bet it's
Yeah,
more. Generally, what you find is conservative. What reporters are also putting out is generally conservative so that they don't get
right.
sued, right? So there's that. So it says Shein's sustainability report says that labor conditions are improving. Of course, it does. It it also shows that in third-party audits of over 3,000 suppliers and subcontractors, 71% received a score of C or lower on the company's grade scale of A to E.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, people don't realize that like machines don't make garments. People have to sew every single thing that you wear, even the things you get on Shein. So if the average price of the garment is $10, how much do you think those people are
Oh,
getting paid?
like pennies, a quarter. I mean, it's so despicably low. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the things I enjoyed the most in working on this story with you was I went down the social media rabbit hole of reaction to this news. And my favorite comment that I saw was posted. It was like one of the top comments on the Puck News Instagram story where they, broke this headline. And the comment was, "This is like if SeaWorld bought PETA."
Yeah.
I was like, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought some of the reactions were so spot on. And
I'm trying to think of other examples. SeaWorld buying PETA is exactly right. And you could think of so many
yeah,
other. Yeah, it's crazy. I saw a lot of reactions to the Everlane and Shein news, and most people I saw were just like so outraged that Everlane would sell out.
yeah,
Like, just like, I can't believe that this brand that was environmentally friendly would sell out to this ghoul. And then the analysis sort of stops there.
yeah. Yeah. I also appreciated the hypocrisy that people pointed out that just like a few days ago on the Everlane Instagram page, they had a post. I'm going to read it. It was like an envelope, and tucked inside the envelope is a letter that says, "Better isn't a mood, it's a standard we refuse to lower."
Yeah, they said that what, two
Yeah,
days
like
before the
2 days ago,
acquisition?
which means
Yeah.
they knew this was coming.
It
Like,
is
maybe
coming.
the poor social media person who designed this didn't, obviously, but, like, the people up in the high tower did, you know?
Yes. And I do think, I mean, diving into this story, I think there's an argument to be made that Everlane kind of sold out a few years prior. Like, this obviously is huge news and very disappointing to people who followed the brand.
Right,
But the founder, who really was the one pushing this environmentally friendly ethos, he sold the majority stake to a private equity firm called L. Catterton like a few years
right.
prior to now. So the founder had stayed on a little bit in like the early days of the acquisition, but he has fully moved on in recent years. Apparently, he started a new company that sells magnesium electrolyte drinks.
Cool.
So he's now like fully in the like,
Longevity,
health
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 and
up.
wellness,
Yes,
yeah, that trend. Yeah,
as
he's moved
one.
on to a new cause.
Right. And so what I'm saying is I think that the private equity firm tried to stay with the company's ethos. Like, there are evidence of investments that the company made since getting under private equity ownership that were in that climate environmental space. I think probably because if they went away from it, what customers are they actually going to have?
Right.
Right. But they were under no obligation to honor that original altruistic intent. And apparently, so Puck News reported that L. Catterton needed to offload Everlane, which generates about $160 million in sales and loses money. And there weren't really any takers.
Right.
And Shein was apparently the only company that would buy it for what they wanted. And they were interested in Everlane's supply chain.
And
They're sort of like,
that's what I
yeah.
find most interesting here. So Shein is interested in Everlane's supply chain, which, if we are to believe what Everlane has been telling us in all of its marketing materials and sustainability reports, it has this very eco-friendly, um, labor practice positive supply chain. So this may be Pollyanna-ish, but is this Shein trying to like turn a new leaf? Are they trying? Do you think this is another example of greenwashing, or do you think they legitimately are trying to do better?
Bro.
I'm trying here. I'm trying.
I think Shein is about to become the new Everlane. I think it's going to turn a new leaf. I think that it's going to stop producing 10,000 new garments a day. And I think it's going to go from only 76% of its garments being made out of virgin plastics to maybe 74%
Right.
of all of its good. No, I mean, seriously, like anyone who thinks that like Shein is all of a sudden going to become environmentally friendly
Yeah.
is absolutely kidding
Yeah.
themselves and needs a reality check. Obviously, that's not what Shein is. This is an attempt at a reputational facelift, in my opinion, right? I'm not a business acquisitions reporter, but from what I've seen, like, and I'm sure from what you've seen, how often is it not greenwashing?
Right. I think part of me is like, does she actually think people will buy this bullshit? And the sad thing is, probably on a certain level, some will. But the more like shocking reality is here is it costs them hardly anything. If this is a failed experiment for them, it won't matter.
No.
You know?
Well, and there's a certain type of consumer that will never buy Shein.
Right.
Me when I'm mentally
And
healthy
me.
and you all the time, right? Like,
Right.
but if you were going around looking for a pair of jeans that, you know, used all recycled water and Shein happened to sell it and it happened to be $40 instead of $100, maybe you would go like, okay, well, that's better than what I
Right.
was doing before. Like I can get an ethically sourced pair of jeans now for
Yeah.
$40. However, what Shein is doing is not trying to make shopping more environmentally friendly.
No.
It's trying to trap eco-conscious consumers into its cycle of overconsumption.
Right.
It wants you on that site, it wants you purchasing, and it wants you to keep purchasing every single new drop.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why I was always bothered and why I wanted to write this article I wrote about everyone thinking that Shein bought this eco-friendly brand by buying Everlane. Of course, Everlane, as we already went through, did a lot of things that were way better than, let's say, Shein or H&M or Madewell or any of these
Right.
other brands that aren't taking the environment into such consideration. But Everlane was still a direct-to-consumer brand built on new drops all the time, constantly restocking,
Yeah.
right? It was still trapping you in a cycle of buying more new shit,
Yeah.
even if it was better shit.
Yeah.
And what we know about our current climate and environmental crises is that, yes, there are problems with the material, but the long-term problem is this cycle of
Yeah.
overconsumption, of constantly buying shit that we don't actually need. Like, of course, consumerism and commerce are different things,
Mhm.
right? Like buying things it's not inherently bad for the planet.
Mhm.
But like sometimes you need a new pair of jeans,
Right.
right? But that's not what these brands are really doing. And it's not even what Everlane was
No.
doing. And so Everlane was still a major fashion company whose business model relied on overconsumption. And that is fundamentally incompatible with a safe climate.
Well, this is a good place to talk about, well, then what makes good fashion? And you mentioned like some of these, other companies like H&M and Madewell. Again, admittedly, I'm a skeptical journalist. I should be more skeptical of some of these things, but like you go to H&M and they have boxes where they're like, recycle your clothes with us. And I specifically go to Madewell because they will recycle my jeans. I can take old jeans and allegedly put them in a box at Madewell where they will take them and strip them for insulation, etc. And that makes me feel better. And then, of course,
Yes.
when I hand them my old jeans, they give me a coupon for like $25 off a new pair, which inevitably then I also do that too. So yes, it is a cycle. But we should talk about like what is good fashion. And I want to ask you, like, what are you wearing today? Like
Oh, yeah.
we both very specifically showed up to this wearing certain items of clothing. And
Mm.
I would like to ask you, what is the good fashion you are wearing today and why?
So, I'm not perfect. Nobody is, and I would never expect anybody to be perfect. But what I've learned through reporting is that anything that encourages circular fashion, a circular economy, processes that reuse clothing instead of making clothing from virgin materials, or even making new things from recycled
Mhm.
materials, it's better,
Right.
right? But we have so much material already here.
Right.
So anything that is circular and encourages reuse is better. So I'm a clothing renter. Like I'm a person who
Oh, cool.
really, yeah, I really like, and I do thrift. I try to thrift almost all of my clothes, especially since I'm now on the really trying to avoid polyester and plastic
Right.
train. And most old clothes or like more old clothes are made with
They're better.
cotton and linen
Yeah.
and they're better
They're made with
and they're
better
cool.
materials, which is why
But
they don't
so
fall
what
apart and why they still exist
exactly.
30 years later.
Exactly. So, but what I'm wearing right now is a cotton shirt from Newly, the rental service that I use. But it helps me with that thing that I have that I grew up with, where sometimes getting new things gives me that like
Yeah,
dopamine hit that
I
makes
get
me
it.
feel like I'm going to solve my
Yeah,
problems. So, I'm a clothing renter. This little croissant
I
shirt
like it.
is rented. My pants are rented. And yeah, what about you?
So I am wearing this 1970s vintage sweatshirt that was my dad's in college.
Oh, cool.
And I love it because it is fitted and it is cropped. So that would make it in style today, as the millennials would say. Right? But I think the thing that also impresses me is when I've bought things more recently, all of a sudden you get holes in things. You're like, I haven't even worn it that much, or I haven't even washed it that much, and holes are appearing. Yes, there's a hole, like a teeny tiny hole, like, in the armpit of the sweatshirt, because it is 40 years old. And I just
Right.
love the fact that I wear this now and it looks like something that I probably could have spent $160 on in some like, shishi trendy store. But I just love the fact that it's actually legitimately old and it's now upcycled. I stole it from his closet.
Yeah, and it's cool,
And it's
right? It's like
cool.
legitimately cool.
But I also want to hold on. I want to show you something else that I brought.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
so oh gosh, sorry, show and tell, guys. So I wanted to show you this. So this is very classic gray shift dress that is Ralph Lauren that my mother bought me my senior year of high school. Now, I'm not here to humble brag that like I am wearing a dress from 1999, but I am. And I wear this because number one, it's
I'm not saying I'm better than you, but I am saying like I'm a little better than you.
my point though is like I have actually a lot of clothes in my closet that really are from like college. Like I remember taking this to
Mm.
college and hanging it in my freshman dorm because it was like this like classic kind of suit piece thing. But my point is it still is in perfect mint condition and I still wear it because it's classic, it's timeless, it hasn't gone out of style, it fits and it still looks good. And if I had bought this exact same thing today, I feel like guaranteed in like 4 years, it probably would start to fray. It wouldn't fit because we just don't make things as good as we used to anymore either. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I have a lot of things in my closet that I won't get rid of because I'm just like, well, they're still good and they still fit. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy that exact same thing now because I still have it. I still have it and it still works for me.
Some of my favorite accounts on like Instagram are accounts that try to just restyle the clothes that they've had
Yes.
forever. So they're like, okay, I've had this shirt for 8 years. I don't maybe I'll, tuck it or tie it or cut the sleeves off or put a bandana around
Right.
it or something, just showing you like the different ways that you can reuse. But like I don't even bring this up to be like Everlane was always bad, right?
Right.
I'm trying to make the point that Shein is cannot use Everlane to become an environmentally friendly company
Right.
because being a clothes company that primarily focuses on making new clothes and selling new clothes and new drops can never be environmentally friendly, even if the materials are better than virgin polyester, right? And I have a big problem with just the term environmentally friendly because it's so vague.
Yeah.
It mostly is used to describe things that are better than horrible,
Right. Right.
right? So Shein is horrible.
Right.
Everlane is way better. And Everlane scored the highest out of any fashion company on this fashion environmental justice accountability report card that
Mhm.
I cite in my in my article about this on the Heated newsletter. But the score was still like a technical failing grade. It was like 40 out of 130.
Right.
Right? So when we have these conversations about like, oh, but Everlane was environmentally friendly, it's like, no, it wasn't.
It was the best
it
of a bad apple, like a group of
it
bad
was
apples. Yeah.
right. We don't have truly climate friendly new clothes companies.
No.
Like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has a great page on what like true circular fashion economy companies would look like. It's called the fashion remodel.
Mhm.
And they basically say that like a truly planet friendly fashion company can exist, but it would have to make money from durability, repair, resale, rental, remaking, made to order production, and just basically keeping garments in circulation longer. It has to decouple revenue from producing more stuff.
Hmm.
That's what the future of truly climate and planet friendly fashion looks like. Everlane was so much better than its peers, but like it wasn't that. And I only say that to tell you that Shein can never
Yeah.
use that to be
No.
environmentally friendly. So like don't buy the bullshit.
Right. I mean, we should point out here, though, that there are some textile clothing companies that do versions of this. Like,
Yeah.
LL Bean, Patagonia, the North Face come to mind as companies where you can send in your old product, they will repair it for you and return it to you. Like they have really big policies to do that. Again, it's not a perfect system, but there are places that do this. But on the flip side, when you see those boxes in H&M that say, "We'll recycle your clothes," more often than not, those clothes aren't being recycled. They're being sent to like markets in Africa and South
Yeah.
America where they sit and then eventually might end up in the Atacama Desert and these massive piles of clothes that can be seen from space. Like it is incredibly hard to recycle textiles. It is incredibly hard to dispose of them unless you are like shredding them for insulation, or like donating them to an animal shelter so that they can be used as like dog pets. Like there's just
Yeah.
very few ways that we can recycle textiles. And that is something that a lot of companies are now trying to invest in, figuring out how can we recycle textiles better. But like there is not a silver bullet for this solution. And every time you put something in the trash, it is going to sit in a landfill and outlive you 9 times out.
Yeah. It's very It's very difficult to actually have a
Yeah.
successful business model that relies on recirculation. And I think there's probably a case to be made that one of the reasons Everlane failed, I don't know this, I am just speculating,
Right.
was that it existed within this business model that depended on the consumer constantly accumulating more stuff, right?
Right.
That's but they focused on making better quality stuffs that lasted for longer. So people didn't need to buy more stuff. So, like, I think there's this case to be made that the company's focus on making better quality stuff was the reason that they weren't even able to sustain itself. Because in that model, you have to keep selling shit to stay in business. And Everlane obviously was not selling more shit.
Yeah. I would like to hear from people that read your newsletter or listen to the podcast or watch it. I would like to know whether or not the quality lived up to expectation. I would be curious
Yeah.
for me to find out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering if more reporting will come out on like, was Everlane really
Yeah.
like living up to its ethos? I don't know. I mean, because it got acquired by private equity a couple years ago, I'm like, I bet it
Or
went
did they
downhill.
notice a shift after the sale to the private
Yeah,
equity company?
totally.
Yeah. Well, okay, we cannot leave people here on like this super down note. So, I mean, what is the answer? Should we just never be buying clothes again? Like
No.
what would you say? Like what do we do from here on out?
um, I don't know. I mean, like nobody is morally pure. Everybody needs to buy new clothes,
Right.
right? The answer lies within business systems always, right? Like it's like I said earlier, I always want to be kind to individuals and tough on systems. Businesses need to figure out how to invest in more circular models.
Mm.
But also, there are things that we can do as individuals to encourage those models.
Mhm.
So much of our fashion pollution problem is based on culture,
Mhm.
is based on like the culture that we create of wanting new things in order to be liked or to get more likes on our pictures or whatever. And I think rentals are a great way to do that. I actually, in talking to you about this, I'm like, I need to do some critical reporting on rental companies to see, like, is this actually more environmentally friendly? Because not to get down a rabbit hole here, but back in like 2017, 2018, I was like, oh, those boxes of to order ugly produce, they're really helpful to the food waste problem. And then I really dug into it and I was like, it's actually maybe perpetuating the food waste problem because it's creating a product line out of a waste stream. So it
Right.
incentivizes the creation of waste. So I was like, oh no. So I don't know. I feel like, rental is sort of it's a great option, a great step forward to consumers,
Yeah.
but it's just like, I think the whole point of this is that we need to stop confusing better consumer choices with actual systemic climate solutions that will get us out of this crisis.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think the most alarming thing about Shein's purchase of Everlane is not that Everlane sold out to Shein. It's that Shein is going to use Everlane to launder and market like a
Right.
genuinely ecocidal business model.
Yeah.
They're going to try to fool us into thinking that what they're doing is compatible with a safe climate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing as consumers is we just can't be fooled by that
Right.
because Shein is not burdened by any desire to slow the cycle of resource extraction. So we as consumers just need to be educated on that and try to do the best we can, but keep our eyes focused on those systems. And that's all I have for you today. To learn more about the larger systems driving the climate crisis, become a subscriber to the Heated newsletter. You can do that by searching Heated on Substack, Heated newsletter on Google, or typing heated.world into your URL bar. Heated is a 100% reader-funded operation. We don't run ads or sponsored content or take billionaire money or corporate money or nonprofit money. And we do this so that you know you can trust our reporting. So if you'd like to support our mission and help keep our content free for everybody, you can do that at the Heated newsletter. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.